All right, so I really want Ilhan Omar's job. I mean, seriously, how easy would life be if what I needed to do was just promise everyone everything and that the government will take it over and take care of it? And I don't even have to do it with my own money. I get to use everyone else's money that was taken from them. This is the easiest thing in the world and should impress no one. It's one thing to just tweet this out, but it's entirely other thing to have government take over entire industries and have them try and redirect resources for hundreds of millions of people on an hour-to-hour basis. It's impossible and would end in unmitigated disaster, but man, all I'd have to do is just say we're going to do that, and I wouldn't even have to answer for how this is humanly possible without massive, undesirable, unintended, and disastrous consequences. It would be a lot easier than my job is now. My job now is extraordinarily stressful. In long hours, weekends, huge challenges, a million moving parts. This seems a lot easier. And I wouldn't even have to say how I would do any of this, and I don't have to answer to those who point out the impossibility of it, or the all too real concern that if you did this, the solution, as is almost always the case with government, will be worse than the original problem. The original problem, by the way, which was largely created by government to begin with. So, I mean, housing for all, I seem to remember a push along these lines. It wasn't even housing for all, and it was just politicians telling banks that you'd better start giving loans to people who you otherwise wouldn't. I seem to remember the Community Reinvestment Act and Barney Frank and a whole bunch of people in Congress pushing for this. And guess what? It worked at first. A whole bunch of people who had low incomes were in houses they couldn't afford. But credit was so cheap and easy, everyone was buying homes, bidding prices up, so everyone's equity was through the roof. They were all saying, hey, look at the house I bought for 150 grand. It's now worth 300 grand. Thank you, Congress. Thanks for setting the banks straight. Well, unfortunately, the bill came due. People soon realized, oh boy, I can't actually afford this place, even with a low interest rate. And as more people sold or were foreclosed on, the housing market plummets, and people who are low-income earners, although they had a short-lived party, it lasted a few years. It's true, government is pretty adept at doing that. They can seriously meet needs, wants, and desires in the short term, but long-term, the very people this was designed to help were precisely the people it hurt the most in the end. And the banks weren't blameless either. They acted irresponsibly, for sure, but they were wasted on the spiked punch the government was serving up, of course. And now student debt also. Again, we've been over this, but this is a problem largely of government's doing. You make loans easy as hell to get. Risk is barely considered in the financing. You have a government-created, artificially skyrocketing demand on higher education. Colleges need more staff because of the massive influx of students, so they have to raise tuition. And also, why not raise tuition? Students don't have to worry about paying for anything for half a decade or so, and even longer if they go into grad school and get the loans deferred. So again, with government, in their noble quest to make sure everyone has access to everything, which I am not immune to thinking that sounds great, but as usual, government actively makes things infinitely worse in the long run, no matter how angelic they may come across as. Again, for a little while, government can redline an industry in fifth gear and make it seem like this is too good to be true. And then it reveals itself as being too good to be true because reality comes crashing in and people are left worse off. The students are left worse off. Just as the people I spoke about before who bought homes they shouldn't have been given a loan for. They get to have a good time for a little while and then it crashes and burns. And those in government who are truly responsible for creating a situation that harms the lives of all of these people, they never have to answer for anything. Again, to go back to my original point, seems like a really cushy job. I'd love to have it. I've got to answer for everything I do as it is now. I hate it. If I make a decision, I have to own my consequences. Major drag. I want to just be able to promise stuff to people with money that isn't even my own and get an applause for it. But that's all for now. Like and subscribe and take it easy.